I've never believed in ghost stories. Not really. Sure, I enjoyed them. Who doesn't like a good scare around a campfire? But they were just stories to me. Until that trip to La Rumorosa. My name's Jason, and this is a story I never thought I'd share publicly. Not because I'm afraid people won't believe me, but because deep down, I'm still trying to convince myself it really happened. It was mid-October when the four of us decided to go on a camping trip. Me, Leo, Brian and Matteo. We'd been best friends since college, and now that we were all caught up in adult life, jobs, schedules, responsibilities, we needed a break. Leo suggested we take the weekend to disconnect and go somewhere off the grid, somewhere wild. I found this spot, Leo said one night, scrolling through his phone. It's called La Rumorosa in Baja, California. Apparently it's got insane rock formations and killer views. Barely anyone goes out there. None of us had heard of it before, but we were sold on the pictures. Rugged cliffs, twisted stone shapes, and a sense of untouched isolation. It looked like something out of a dream, or maybe a Western film. We packed up our gear, filled up Leo's old SURD, and made the 6-hour drive from San Diego. The border crossing into Mexico was smooth, and for the first few hours the trip was uneventful. Laughter, bad gas station snacks, and music blasting from the speakers. But as we neared the town of Tecate and started the winding ascent toward La Rumorosa, something shifted. The road carved through steep mountain passes, bordered by jagged boulders and canyons that seemed to fall away into blackness. It was strangely quiet out there. No traffic, no animals, not even wind. Just us surrounded by towering rocks that looked like they'd been dropped from the sky. It was beautiful, no doubt, but it carried an eerie stillness, like the land was holding its breath. "Damn, this place is wild," Brian said, peering out the window. "It's like Mars." "Yeah," Matteo laughed nervously. "Mars, or Mordor." We chuckled, but I could sense we were all feeling it. That subtle tension you don't want to admit to your friends, like you're just being paranoid. But even Leo, who usually joked about everything, seemed unusually focused as he drove. We reached the campsite by late afternoon. There was no official campground, just a flat clearing between towering rocks where we could pitch our tents. The nearest town was miles away, and we hadn't seen another soul since we turned off the main road. We set up camp quickly. The sun was setting fast, casting long shadows across the stones, turning them into silhouettes of twisted creatures. We built a fire, cooked up some food, and settled in for what we thought would be a peaceful night under the stars. Around the fire we shared stories and drank a few beers. The laughter came back and we relaxed. For a while, it felt like the perfect getaway. Then, sometime around midnight, the wind started. It wasn't the kind of wind you're used to in the mountains. It came in gusts, short violent bursts that echoed between the rocks like whispers, and with it came a low humming sound. At first I thought it was the wind playing tricks through the cliffs, but the longer I listened, the more it sounded deliberate, like chanting, faint, almost inaudible, but rhythmic. "Do you guys hear that?" I asked. Leo nodded slowly. "Yeah, it's probably just the wind." But I saw it in his eyes. He didn't believe that. None of us did. Still, we didn't panic. We chalked it up to nerves and exhaustion. We zipped into our tents around 1 a.m., each of us retreating into our own silence. Lying there in the dark, the wind continued its strange pattern, and I swear, there were moments I heard footsteps, crunching slowly on gravel just outside my tent. But every time I unzipped the flap and shined my flashlight around, there was nothing. By sunrise it was quiet again. Too quiet. We gathered around the fire pit, half joking about the weird night, pretending it hadn't gotten under our skin. None of us mentioned the shadows that seemed to move when no one was walking, or the feeling, overwhelming, suffocating, that we were being watched. We decided to stay one more night. That was our first mistake. If I had trusted my instincts that morning, we would have left, packed our bags, driven down the mountain, and maybe none of this would have happened. But we were stubborn, young, skeptical, and too proud to admit we were scared. The morning after our first night was oddly beautiful. Clear skies, cool breeze, and sunlight that painted the stone cliffs in golden hues. It was like the previous night had been nothing more than a strange dream. We laughed about how dramatic we'd been. Chanting wind and mysterious footsteps. Maybe it was just our imaginations playing tricks on us in an unfamiliar place, but even then, something was off. Mateo noticed it first. "Guys," he said, standing near the edge of our campsite. "Come look at this." We walked over to where he was pointing and saw what looked like footprints, but not ours. These were smaller, more narrow, almost like they'd been made by someone barefoot, and they circled our tents. "That's just an animal," Brian said, though his voice lacked conviction. "No animal walks in a perfect circle around a tent," Mateo muttered. We examined the prints for a few minutes, trying to reason through it, but eventually dismissed them. It was easier to shrug it off than to consider what it might actually mean. After breakfast, we went exploring. La Rumorosa is like another planet. Jagged cliffs, narrow canyons, caves tucked between wind-eroded rocks. We wandered for hours, taking pictures, climbing rock formations, and laughing like things were normal. But the deeper we went, the more the air seemed to change. Thicker, heavier, like we were walking through something ancient and unknowable. It was Leo who spotted it. A small stone structure tucked into the side of a ravine. It looked almost like a shrine, half collapsed with hand-carved markings that had long been worn down by wind and time. In the center of it was a small pile of bones. Animal, we hoped, and a circle of blackened stones like the remains of a fire. "This is weird," I said. "No kidding," Leo replied. "It looks like someone's been out here doing rituals." Mateo stayed back. "I don't like this. Let's go." But Brian, always the curious one, stepped into the circle. "Maybe it's like local folklore, witchcraft or something." "Get out of there, man," I said, half joking, half serious. He laughed, but his voice cracked slightly. "Relax, it's just rocks." Still, as we walked away, none of us spoke. We didn't even joke about it. There was a tension in the air, like we'd just trespassed somewhere we weren't supposed to be. As we returned to camp, I kept looking over my shoulder. I had the unmistakable feeling that we weren't alone anymore. That night, the wind came back, stronger, harsher, and with it, voices. I know how that sounds, but I'm not exaggerating. As we sat around the fire trying to play cards and keep the mood light, we began hearing whispers, not from each other, not from the trees or rocks, but from the shadows beyond the firelight. They came in short bursts, faint, unclear, but unmistakably human. "What was that?" Mateo asked, looking around sharply. "I heard it too," Leo said, "like someone talking." "From where?" I asked, but no one could tell. The sound seemed to move, from behind one rock, then from another direction entirely. It felt like we were being surrounded by something we couldn't see. "I think we need to get inside the tents," Brian finally said. "Let's just get some sleep." Sleep was impossible. Lying in my tent, I heard things I still can't explain. Low scratching along the outside fabric. Heavy breathing that didn't match mine. And once, just once, I heard someone say my name. "Jason," just like that. A whisper no more than inches from my ear, as if someone was kneeling right outside. I bolted upright, heart hammering in my chest. I called out to the others and Leah responded immediately. "I heard it too." We unzipped our tents and met around the fire pit, flashlights in hand, scanning the darkness. But nothing was there. Nothing but the wind and the endless silhouettes of stone. Mateo was pale. I swear I heard someone crying, like a woman, out there. "Stop it," Brian snapped. "Just stop. We're freaking each other out." "No, man, I'm serious. I heard it. She was saying something, but it wasn't in English or Spanish. I don't know what it was." None of us had an answer. We sat there staring into the fire until the sun finally rose. By then, we had all agreed. We were leaving in the morning, but as we packed up our things and tried to shake the tension from our shoulders, we noticed something else. Our backpacks had been moved. Nothing was missing, but they'd clearly been opened. Some of our clothes were scattered on the rocks, laid out like someone had gone through them one by one, and on the largest stone near our tent, someone, or something, had drawn a symbol in ashes, a spiral surrounded by tiny handprints. No one said a word. That was the moment I knew. We'd made a terrible mistake coming here, and it was already too late to turn back. That third night in La Rumorosa felt different from the beginning. The air didn't move. No wind, no sound, not even insects. It was too still, like the desert was holding its breath. Even the rocks, which had felt almost alive the day before, now loomed silently around us, like stone witnesses waiting for something to begin. We didn't talk much that evening. All of us were on edge. Even Brian, who always tried to lighten the mood, had gone quiet. Mateo had barely eaten all day. He kept glancing at the ridgelines, muttering prayers in Spanish, clutching the small cross he wore around his neck. We built the fire larger than usual that night, as if flames could protect us from whatever might be watching. We didn't say it aloud, but we all felt it, that something was watching. From the rocks, from the shadows, from the black beyond the firelight. It started around midnight. A loud, sharp crack echoed through the canyon, like a branch snapping, except there were no trees here. Then another, then silence. We froze. "Did you hear that?" Leo asked, flashlight already in hand. Before anyone could answer, the sounds returned, closer. This time it wasn't just one crack, it was footsteps. Fast, like something running on two legs, circling us in the dark. I grabbed the flashlight and scanned the cliffs. Nothing, just stone and night. Then, laughter. A high, brittle, inhuman laugh that came from the left side of the camp. Then instantly echoed on the right. Brian shouted, "What the hell was that?" Mateo stood up fast, almost tripping over the fire pit. "We need to go, now." "We can't hike out in the dark," I snapped. "That's suicide." "But staying here is worse," he said, his voice shaking. The fire suddenly flared up, a gust of wind hitting us hard out of nowhere. Sparks flew. Leo swore and stumbled back. We turned to calm the flames. And that's when Brian gasped. What the hell is that?" He was pointing toward the cliff. Just beyond the firelight, maybe 20 feet away, stood a figure. Tall, thin, covered in dark, tattered cloth. Its arms hung too low. Its head tilted at an unnatural angle. We couldn't see its face, just the shape of it silhouetted by moonlight. We all froze. No one breathed. The figure didn't move. "Who are you?" I shouted. "Do you need help?" It didn't answer. Then it took a step forward. I felt my heart lurch into my throat. Mateo grabbed his backpack. "I'm done. We're leaving. Screw this." We threw our gear together in seconds, shoving supplies into bags, kicking dirt over the fire. But when we turned to leave, the figure was gone. Just vanished. Leo scanned with his light. "Where did it go? I didn't hear it move." We started fast hiking down the narrow canyon trail. Our flashlights barely pierced the darkness, but we didn't care. We just wanted out. Every few steps we heard movement beside us. Pebbles falling, the shuffle of feet, the laughter again, faint, mocking. At one point, Brian turned and whispered, "I think we're being followed." He wasn't wrong. I looked back and saw multiple shadows moving behind us, flitting from boulder to boulder, never quite fully visible. But we could feel them. Leo tripped on a rock and nearly fell. I pulled him up, and that's when I noticed. His wrist was bleeding, a fresh, shallow scratch he hadn't had minutes before. "Something grabbed me," he whispered. "I swear to God, something touched me." "We have to keep moving," I said. "Don't stop." We pushed on for over an hour, until we found a wide plateau where the moon lit up the landscape enough to feel safe. We collapsed there, too afraid to go farther in the dark. For a moment we caught our breath. Then Brian screamed. We turned and saw him backing away from his backpack. Inside, his clothes had been slashed, deep cuts like from a blade or claw, but none of us had touched his bag. It had been with him the whole time, and worse, his phone, which had been fully charged, was now dead. We checked our own. All of them, black screens, no power. "Okay," Leo said, trying to steady his breath. This isn't normal, this is something else." "Something wants us out," Mateo whispered. "Something doesn't want us here." But the truth was, we couldn't leave, not until sunrise. We huddled together in silence, backs to each other, facing out into the night, clutching our dull flashlights and whatever courage we had left. No one slept. We waited for dawn like people drowning wait for air. And as the sky finally turned from black to grey, we realised we were one man short. Brian was gone. His sleeping bag was empty, no sign of a struggle, no sound, no footprints leading away. He had simply vanished. The sun finally rose, casting a pale light over the plateau, but it brought no comfort, only dread. I remember sitting up slowly, my muscles stiff, my mouth dry. The wind had returned, soft, steady, but the air still felt wrong, like it had carried something ancient through the night. Leo was already awake, sitting with his knees to his chest, staring blankly into the distance. Matteo stood at the edge of the plateau, scanning the surrounding rocks with a wild look in his eyes. But where was Brian? "Brian?" I called out. "Hey man, come on. Not funny." No answer. I stood and walked toward his sleeping bag, still zipped open, his jacket draped over it. His backpack lay untouched beside it. His boots were there too, but he wasn't. I looked around. No tracks, no signs of where he'd gone, just bare stone. "Guys, he's gone." Matteo spun around. "What?" "His stuff's all here. He didn't pack, he didn't walk off." We all scrambled, shouting his name, checking behind rocks, calling down the trail, but it was useless. It was like he had vanished without making a sound. No one could process it. Leo kept saying, maybe Brian woke up early, maybe went to find a signal, but we were miles from reception. And barefoot? Without a jacket? Not a chance. Then Matteo found something. Just off the path, a few feet away, lying half buried in the sand, was Brian's phone, still dead. But on the screen, cracked and flickering faintly, was a photo, one we hadn't taken. It was of us, the three of us, sleeping by the fire, and in the background, barely visible, was the figure, standing behind Brian, watching him. I felt the blood drain from my face. No, this isn't possible," I whispered. "We didn't take this." Matteo muttered a prayer. He dropped the phone like it burned. That's when Leo finally said what none of us wanted to hear. "We have to leave him." "What?" I snapped. "We've searched everywhere. There's no sign of him. We can't stay here. We don't belong here." Matteo nodded slowly. "This place is cursed. The stories are true. I heard them growing up. About people disappearing in RUMOROSA. I thought they were just legends." "What stories?" He looked at me with guilt. "Witches, spirits of the desert, travelers who never made it home. My uncle told me once this place is called RUMOROSA because of the voices, the whispers, the ones that lead you away." "And you brought us here?" "I thought it was just a name." I was too angry to respond, but I knew he didn't do it on purpose. We were all just stupid kids chasing adventure in a place we didn't understand. We packed what little we had and started the long hike down. The trail back felt endless. Each rock now looked like a grave marker. Each shadow, a hiding place for something that didn't want us there. The laughter was gone, but the silence was worse. Somewhere along the way, Leo stopped and turned around, looking back up the ridge. "I don't think he's dead," he said softly. "I don't know why, but I think he's still here, somewhere." I wanted to believe that, but a part of me knew we'd never see Brian again. When we finally reached the edge of the highway, we flagged down a truck. The driver was an old man who stared at us with haunted eyes. "You camped up there?" he asked, voice dry. We nodded. He shook his head. "You're lucky, most don't come down." We didn't speak the rest of the ride. When he dropped us in the next town, we called Brian's parents, filed a report. But the local police barely reacted. They had heard of things like this, and they didn't go up there anymore. Weeks passed, then months. No trace, no body, nothing. Just three broken men with a story no one believed. It's been 2 years. 2 years since we came down from that cursed ridge in RUMOROSA, leaving behind sleeping bags, firewood, and a friend we'd never see again. But in truth, we left behind more than just Brian. I think we left pieces of ourselves. Leo doesn't talk much anymore. He moved across the country, away from deserts, away from mountains, away from the past. Matteo went through something darker, a kind of silent guilt that eats him from the inside. He started seeing a priest, then a healer, then no one at all. As for me, I can't close my eyes without hearing the wind. I've tried to explain what happened. I told my parents, friends, even an online forum. But every time I do, I get the same reaction: pity, disbelief, or the worst, mocking laughter. It's easier to believe we got high and lost a friend in the desert. But we didn't. Something took him. And I've stopped trying to convince anyone otherwise. I still have Brian's last message saved, a dumb joke about bringing marshmallows. I read it sometimes just to remind myself that he was real, that we were just 4 kids excited to chase the stars until the stars turned their backs. Sometimes when I dream, I see him, not like a ghost, not bloody or screaming, just watching me, like he's trying to say something I can't hear. I've thought about going back, climbing the ridge again, retracing every step, but something deep in my bones tells me if I go, I won't come back either. Like the land remembers, like it's waiting. We told Brian's parents everything, not the version with spirits and shadow figures. They wouldn't have believed it. We said he must have gotten up early and wandered off, that we searched, that we were sorry. They didn't blame us, but that didn't make it easier. Every year on the date we left, I light a candle, not because I think he's dead, but because I know something else is out there, watching, waiting, listening through the wind. They call it La Rumorosa for a reason, because once you hear the whispers, you never forget them. This was Jason's story, a memory etched into dust and wind, left behind in a place where silence screams and shadows remember. May it serve as a warning to those who seek thrill without reverence. Some places were never meant for us.